Are you ready for another night of steamy, hot, frothy NBA Cup action? Well, good news, you've come to the right place. We're going to cover today's two-game NBA Cup slate, another round of quarterfinals here. It was a great video yesterday with guys like Jalen Suggs, Anthony Black going off that we talked about. Good amount of length. See if we can do it again. And of course, we're going to do what we always do here. We're going to compare my projections to one of the industry leaders in Stokastic. Also look at some ownership for the DFS slates in particular tonight on DraftKings. We're going to hop over to the world of prop betting with our friends at Unabated. Of course, get $30 off, promo code SPLASH and Unabated. And we're going to get some great prop bets out there as well. But let's get into it. Let's start with your top projected players. So yesterday, I had the Luka fade fucking spot on. That felt pretty good too. Still got him in a few lineups just because that's naturally how it goes. But I had some lineups that were top 200 in the big tournament and in the 4-point play. So felt good about yesterday's slate. Felt good about my process. So we'll see what we get here. Shout out to Effect MD, of course, the regulars tuning in. Of course, anybody else who comes along the way, appreciate you being here as well. And hit that like button when you do come in, but I'll hopefully earn it over the course of this video. Top projected player for me on the slate, Karl Anthony Towns. A rare day where I'm only 0.2 ahead of Stokastic on Towns. Towns, I've mentioned here pretty much every video the Knicks have been on the slate. One of my favorite players for the NBA this year. One of my favorite plays in general relative to industry projections. I have Towns projected well. I can list some numbers here that maybe make the case more. Probably don't matter that much. 1.45 fantasy points minute on the year for Cat, the big bodega, the new nickname for him. 28% usage, a little bit higher than that percentage-wise. 23% rebound rate, 14% assist rate. Doing a little bit of everything. The match against Atlanta, not one we're afraid of either. Nice total for the Knicks as well today with the 122.5 implied points. This game should be theoretically the higher paced option, though. Knicks at a pace up spot for sure as well. So for Cat, I like the spot a lot. I'll be there a good amount. Sim-wise, got 77%. The lineups that I built before the show. Alperen Sengun, number 2 projected play for me here. I've been 46.3. Stochastic has been 44.9. Surprisingly, it doesn't lead to me getting more, perhaps because it's such a big town stand here with 77% compared to 47%. I'm getting all that Towns. I'm not getting as much Sengun. That said, Sengun to me, a viable pivot. Price point-wise, $500 cheaper than Towns. Playing both together, something I'm sure I'll get in some amount of lineups. Sengun, a solid play today, though he is questionable right now. I assume he's going to go. I assume everybody is going to go. Yesterday, PJ Washington was kind of out of nowhere, ended up not playing. His illness was too good or too much for him to play through it. For the guys today, it's a lot of stuff like for Sengun, it's just knee soreness. So I feel like that's something he would normally play through. Hopefully we'll get that to be the case. Warriors guys should be back in today, though. Steph Curry, $9,500 salary. Feel to be getting him 16% of the time, which feels low for Steph Curry on a kind of do or die game situation versus a Houston team that defensively pretty good. I mean, certainly, well, honestly, they're not quite as good as, let's say, Boston in terms of defensive efficiency, but still one of the top teams. So I guess if you want to fade Houston here or fade Steph Curry versus Houston here, kind of like we talked about, the reason to fade Luka yesterday would be Thunder just have a lot of great wing defenders to throw at him. May make him a little bit harder for him to hit his ceiling. For Steph Curry, I would still have a hard time saying fade him. I'm getting more than the field here at 21% compared to 16, but I think it is a tough enough matchup for him. They have guys to throw at him. There's an article today on ESPN talk about Amen Thompson and how Ime Udoka doesn't ever want him to give up a point. Feels like he shouldn't ever give up a point. That's sort of how Houston's approaching things defensively on the year for everybody besides Sengun, defending the rim. I think they are a good defensive team that could maybe inhibit Curry. That said, I really have a hard time fading Curry in a 2-game slate. So I'll get a little bit more than the field. Won't go crazy on it. I think that feels right to me. Trae Young, I'm okay being lighter on. I'm a little bit lower projected than Stokastic, 43.7 compared to 44.5. As talked about a lot throughout the year, his use rate's been down enough. Jalen Johnson's picked up enough. It's a little bit hard for Trae to get there every single game. In this spot, to me, I really think that for Trae Young, I'm okay being lower on him. He could come through again, kind of the same reasons as Steph Curry. Do or die game. It's going to be an important one. But I think in this situation overall for Trae Young, really, like he just doesn't project as well for me as the other guys. I'm okay being light on him. Tournament-wise, him being lower owned, like Cat's going to be the high-owned play. Brunson's going to be high-owned. It looks like Trae Young, Sengun, Curry, these guys are all sort of your pivots here. Just at less ownership with similar enough projections. But to me, the projections would definitely favor the guys who are a little bit more chalky. Jalen Brunson, not so much, though. Always low on Jalen Brunson because of being high on Towns. I have 50.2% field ownership for Brunson according to Stokastic. I'm getting him at 32%. I'm okay with Brunson at 8,500. Think that price tag is looking a lot better than it has when he's in the 9Ks. It's hard for him to get there in the 9Ks right now with Towns and all the other guys taking up some usage. Brunson as well could potentially look a little bit better. Josh Hart's questionable. If Josh Hart were out after making all the dick jokes about Jalen Brunson the other day post-game. You could see Brunson come up a little bit more as well projection-wise. So I'm lowing him 43.1 compared to 46.1. That said, matchup-wise, hard to argue it. Price tag-wise as well. If we're being price-sensitive, as we should be, this again, I'll attribute it again to petty theft, talking on Lowell's in his retirement video about one of the things that he thought was most important that people don't pay enough attention to. It's price sensitivity. So when you see Brunson coming down like this, Jalen Johnson a little bit down, being mindful that's an important part of it. So I don't think Brunson's a bad play. I just don't love the 50% ownership. I don't think I'm going to force my way to that. Jalen Johnson, I'll have more than the field here. Again, he projects similarly to me to Trae Young. 5.1x value compared to Trae being a 4.6x value. So he'll also be, well, he'll be higher owned than Trae, right? By a little bit. So not really a contrarian stand to go to Jalen Johnson over Trae Young, but positionality, I think it's a little bit better for him as well. I'd rather play some other point guards. That's how I feel about Jalen Johnson. Individual matchup stuff, I'm not really gonna like. It doesn't matter. They could still get around screens. That's not one of those things to worry about. Team efficiency is the main thing to worry about for anything NBA DFS wise. Van Vliet, shocked to see I'm getting more than the field of him, given I'm a little bit lower than Stokastic, 37.2 compared to 37.8. Van Vliet, I think it could be the paying down for a point guard. Looks better than the lineups I built. But these are the top projected guys. Let's sort by value real fast, then we'll go quote unquote game by game, but mostly just go to a different screen so you can see the matchups a little bit more clearly. All right, sort range here. Oops, no, not that way. Sorry. Gotta do the advanced sort. How could I forget our precious advanced sort? Value, Z to A. All right. Top values in the slate. So this is one that's going to end up being a big stand for me today. There's really no value. If you get Josh Hart out, that opens up a little bit. Your Miles McBrides, they would look a little bit better. If you get Şengün out, that would open some things up as well. But right now, to me, Looney looks like the best value in the slate. 4K price tag, averaging about 1.2 fantasy points a minute on the year. He's playing 21 minutes, did play 21 minutes last game. Trace Jackson Davis is now kind of out of that rotation. They've shifted things around with Kuminga being a starter. So I think for Looney here, the ability to rebound, maybe a tough match against Houston. I don't think I'd worry about it that much with Looney overall. I think that for Looney, in this situation, he's just the best value. It's really the main thing to highlight here. So I am getting him a lot more. I think if I run a set, basically what I did yesterday, because it's a 2-game slate, I just ran 4 uniques per lineup on the lineups I took out of the Stokastic sim with my projections. I'll get lower on Looney in terms of the top 20 that I put in. But for a 150 set, I'm getting a lot of Looney right now with not any uniques put onto it. So basically, looks like a top value for me, but that exposure, it's a little bit aggressive if you're going to try to get 79%. Karl-Anthony Towns, talked about him already, getting 77% of him. He looks like a good value for me, despite the high price tag. Tari Eason, another value here, getting 56% compared to the field's 32. I am also higher by 0.9 fantasy points than Stokastic is for Tari Eason. He's a player for me in previous weeks. Whenever I get him in lineups, I feel like he just makes a lot of good tournament lineups work at this price tag as well. I won't compare him to Bobby Portis, but I think there's kind of a similar permanent upside for a guy off the bench. I don't think he gives you 45 plus fantasy points like Portis did yesterday, but wouldn't have guessed about Portis either. Easton's one of those guys to me that I think stands out. The issue is if you did get Şengün out, he would probably be a lot higher owned, I would guess, just because of those minutes being left behind. Miles McBride, we talked about, looking pretty good as it is, would certainly look better if you get Josh Hart out. I am at 67% of the top 150 lineups for me compared to the field's 33. So McBride here, getting 26 minutes projected for him. Not a great play, but $4,100 salary, 22.6 projection for me, compared to 20.4 for Stokastic. I think he looks okay. Kuminga getting a good amount of run lately at 5,400. He'll be played a good amount. People know that he's a starter. That's something that's been in the news lately. Obviously, talk about Draymond Green, the sacrifice to get Kuminga going because they need Kuminga to either be better to make this team better or more likely feature him for a trade with them kind of rumoring to be around Jimmy Butler, sniffing around LeBron a little bit as well, even though I don't know how that's going to happen. Though there has been a lot more LeBron trade talk lately. Not relevant to this slate, but for Kuminga, that's basically why Kuminga is getting this run. He's been good with it. That's at 50% ownership, a little bit lighter on. I'm getting 43. And here's the rest of the top value plays. It's, again, in terms of value, none of these guys are really a value. McBride, a value. Looney, a value. But you're talking about guys off the bench here. You're not getting any starter level value on this 2-game slate. But going game by game here, we got Atlanta, 114.5 implied points. New York, 122.5 implied. You can see pace-wise, pretty big pace down for Atlanta. Normally at a 102.7 pace. They're going down to the Knicks, 96.4 possession level per game. New York here getting the big pace up, about 6 more possessions expected in this game. At least, they're going to meet the Hawks halfway. That's normally how pace works, but let's say about 3 possessions actually they'll get in this game, so that does help out a little bit more. On their side, to talk about their guys, my Trae Young, Jalen Johnson thing. I'm always going to favor Jalen Johnson on slates. That's the case again today. So Jalen Johnson getting 45%, Trae Young 18%. Both will be similarly owned by the field, but it does seem like Trae Young more of a tournament play with less ownership on him. Dyson Daniels, hard for me to ever project well because of the fact the steals are kind of random. Not that good of a shooter, 51% true shooting for him on the year. 0.95 fantasy points a minute, it's not bad, but in this matchup, I only have him at 0.89. So not crazy about Dyson Daniels here, but he's low enough owned. These guys are tournament options. Hunter would be the one I like the most, but even that, and Hunter's been pretty good per minute on the year. 1.03 for DeAndre Hunter is not bad. So price tag at 5,800 is a little bit tough. I think these guys, again, talking about price sensitivity, I feel like Dyson Daniels, Hunter, a little bit overpriced. Capella, probably about where he should be. Bogdanovich, probably appropriately priced based upon the longer-term sample size. That said, I'm getting half the exposure today, 14% compared to 28. Okongwu getting 5% compared to 18. His price tag's come up a little bit. I would take a shot on him, though. I think similar Bobby Portis per minute upside for a player like him at 4,700. The issue is you are missing out on center plays like Towns, like Şengün, which might be tough. Reza Shea, he's cheap at 4,300, but only 21.7 minutes. He's losing a lot of minutes to Hunter being back in. Bogdanovich being back in as well, I'm sure is not helping him. Overall for Reza Shea, not a good enough per minute guy, but nobody's going to be on him and he's 4,300. So maybe, would not play Vic Krejci. Yeah, not a lot for me to love on Atlanta here. I do think though, seeing one of these guys on a tournament hit just relative to the ownership, it wouldn't be crazy. If I were to choose one, I would say probably Hunter, but Bogdanovich, Okongwu, I think also valid enough options. Probably wouldn't want to pay for Dyson Daniels, but that's maybe what makes him a better tournament play. Of course, the game theory of DFS, it's always so fun. At the end of the day, what ends up winning, the projections don't actually matter for like one guy because he just goes nuts. And Dyson Daniels gets 10 steals. I don't think it's going to happen, but if that happens, the slate's broken by Dyson Daniels. New York with their 122.5 implied points. I've talked enough about Towns here, averaging 1.45 fantasy points a minute. I'm at 1.53. Jalen Brunson, 32% compared to 50 for me. So again, low on Brunson, high on Towns. It's been the way I've attacked most slates. It really hasn't made me feel bad other than maybe 1 or 2 times this year. So I like Towns more in the matchup. Brunson, though, against Trae Young, it does get a little feisty with Trae at MSG. So maybe that's something to watch out for. If you want to play a little bit of narrative stuff, I honestly wouldn't blame you for it. Trae does seem to get off on playing it at the Garden more than most. That said, for Brunson here, I think a perfectly solid play. Just not one I'm going to prioritize if he's going to be owned by half the field. Josh Hart, frankly, I would prioritize Trae Young relative to that ownership than I would Brunson at that ownership. But, good price tag on Brunson. Hard to ignore that at 8,500. Josh Hart, OG Anunoby, not plays that look the same to me here, even though they normally do. Josh Hart just a little bit too expensive. He's questionable right now too. Josh Hart, 21%. Again, I really don't believe that that's how that's going to work. But again, it's still team defense. Not really get one guy who's on the guy for every possession. It's not usually how things work out. Same thing for football. I will never buy into that, and I think it tends to be right more often than not. So not worry about that stuff. OG Anunoby, 39% for me compared to 37% for the field. Anunoby, small forward, power forward, looks pretty good there. Really more of a price tag thing, a positionality thing, I think, than any sort of big stand. I got him at 32.8. Stokastic has him at 32.5. Not a big difference overall. When you say single entry, do you mean cash? No, single entry is just a tournament where you can put in 1 entry max. Cash would be a game where half the people take half the top of the prize pool, with the rake obviously included on top of that. Mikal Bridges, 35% for the field compared to 12% for me. So pro Anunoby stand, anti-Josh Hart, anti-Mikal Bridges. If you're looking for the most low-owned play out of the Knicks wing guys, Josh Hart would be it. The Q tag as well in the app, that being there all day, probably keeps his ownership muted too. So Josh Hart, I think Josh Hart, as it kind of always is, he's a good lever against Towns and Brunson. If he rebounds a little bit more, assists a little bit more, that pulls numbers away from those guys. So I think for Bridges, he doesn't provide the same thing. Honestly, Anunoby doesn't provide the same thing either. Maybe on points, Anunoby does a little bit. But I am really not feeling great about any of the wings here. Honestly, you can make the case to me, just flatten this ownership out, try to spread more around. But really, I think it's just the projection combined with the price tag works too well for Anunoby to not have him in top lineups. Miles McBride, 67% for me compared to 33%, so about 2x the field. No values here. That's why he and Kevon Looney come up so much. If you were to put uniques on lineups more, again, increase them. Like I'm talking about, I only put 1 on for the top 150 set that I pulled this data for. If I were to put 4 on, it would flatten out a little bit more to get less guys like McBride, less guys like Kevon Looney. So that's something to keep in mind here. Just kind of distributes the value more. But for Miles McBride, he projects well, 26 minutes. Not a great per minute guy on the year at 0.8, but I'm at 0.86 today. We can live with it. Shout out this nice chat from Thomas here. Big fan of your work. Keep killing it, brother. I appreciate it here. Of course, if you get any value of this video, make sure to show some love. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button. It all goes a long way for me here. A brand new channel. Trying to get to our first 500 subs by the new year is the goal. So we get this channel monetized and get it going. Of course, we are monetized for our friends at Unabated. Shout out to them. Check them out as well. $30 off if you want to get some good bets in. And really, if you are playing DFS slates, never a bad thing to have betting giving you a little bit of a bankroll boost, because it's a lot easier to make money in betting with good data than it is to make it from DFS at a given night. That's the reality of how this industry is. Other nicks here, Precious Achiuwa, kind of a pivot point to Kevon Looney. Not a lot of minutes here, not shooting well, going to start to shoot better at some point. I'm at 1.04 fantasy points a minute today, but still only getting about 11% of my sim lineups overall. Campaign, I did not get at all. Another guy, low minutes tournament option, but it is a cup game. You expect the starters to play more minutes, assuming the game's competitive. So hard to love the bench guys too much, unless they're really in the rotation. And Achiuwa and Payne, they're not really going to take minutes away from other guys. Like Payne would have to take minutes away from Brunson. That's not going to happen. Achiuwa's probably not going to take minutes away from Towns. So sort of how that looks. And yes, always thank you, Thomas. I appreciate that. And shout out Richard. Hey, happy to help. Even though sometimes I do overrate the how much you guys know for the stuff, because I know we have a lot of sharp people in the audience. We get people that are new to stuff, so happy to help out if I can. And if I'm in a good mood, I won't even make fun of you for it. Or a sleepy mood. I don't know if I'm in a good mood today, but I'm like, I don't know. I don't want to be too spicy. Not going to be as toxic as I can sometimes be on here when people say things. Golden State, 110 implied points on their side. We'll get to this game. We'll look at some sim lineups that we'll check out Unabated and hop out of here today. So we'll change up the order a little bit. Golden State, I'm getting Steph Curry above the field. As I mentioned, that's low ownership for a guy in a do or die game in the NBA Cup. 21% ownership for him feels pretty good. That said, not a big stand for me, but we know what he is. It's going to be a tough defensive matchup, whatever they're throwing at him. Van Vliet's always done a good job chasing him around too. The Van Vliet's old enough at this point. I don't know if he'll be as good at that as he's been in the past. That said, for Steph, I would like to get with the field or more than it, just because of what he represents in terms of upside, even though I do prefer, have to point it out again, all the other high dollar guys like Şengün, projection wise, looks better to me. Towns looks a lot better to me. Brunson, cheaper. I see the logic in going there. There's a lot of things going against Curry here, besides the fact that he's Steph Curry and this is an elimination game. And we've seen what he can do over the summer in those kind of situations. Like you don't want to be on the other side of Steph Curry going off on national TV, destroying your team, as the French will tell you. Draymond Green, I'm low on for him. He's still getting good minutes despite the rotations moving around because of Kuminga starting. Don't mind Draymond conceptually, but for me, never a guy I get that much of. 16% field ownership. I'm getting 3%. He's power forward center. I don't know if you want to lose the center spots to Draymond Green anyway. 6,700, not a great price tag either. That's that. Oh, well, if you get spicy back, I just mute you. So it's a win-win for me either way, but noted. Andrew Wiggins, 14% my sim exposure, 13% for the field here. So basically flat with that. Not a big stand on Wiggins no matter what. His projections get 33 minutes. Do or die game. He is a starter, plays good wing defense. So he'll be out there. Hard to love Wiggins, but honestly, projections look good for me. 31.1 compared to 31.2. As a tournament play, he's fine. Kuminga getting less of the field here. 43%, still a good amount compared to the field's 50. For Kuminga, though, don't think he stands out that much. He's getting more usage these days, but not really rebounding, not really assisting, not shooting well. They are trying to jack up his trade value, so he's getting those minutes, getting those opportunities, getting the green light, and all that. But for Kuminga, I don't know. I think really the reason he's a good play is just that they're trying to get him work, but he's not really doing a ton with the work. And it is still a game where I expect the usage to try to go to Steph Curry more. Even defensively, they can maybe try to get the ball to Steph Curry's hands a little bit more than he would normally be, given Houston's defense on their side. Kevon Looney, good value play. Buddy Hield, good value play. Don't think this much ownership is right. Getting 2x the field on a 2-game slate would be more than enough for Looney, but even that feels aggressive. He's been a good per-minute producer, 1.18 fantasy points per minute on the year. I'm at 1.19 today. Looney honestly should be a better true shooter, given the fact he's taking a lot of shots directly at the rim if he ever is getting up a shot, but I guess the free throw shooting for him, maybe not that strong right now. Looney is a value play at 4K. It is what it is. It's not the most exciting play in the world. That rotation is compressed now with no Trace Jackson-Davis in. I suppose Trace Jackson-Davis can get in at some point again, but no reason to expect it today in a matchup when they, in a less important game, they didn't have Jackson-Davis in last time out. I don't know why that would change moving forward, at least for now. Hield honestly feels like a better value play. Shooting guard only maybe limits him a little bit. He's got good usage. He can get hot. Defensive attention will be a little bit less on him. He and Podziemski kind of offer that same thing. Both guys 20 to 25 minutes, getting a little bit less attentive defense overall from the team, not from one specific guy. I would say for Buddy Hield and Podziemski, I think they represent the same thing. But Hield projected a lot better, about 6 fantasy points and change higher. And I am higher on Hield than Stochastic, lower on Podziemski than Stochastic, but not a big difference for either. And that's Golden State side. And now Houston side here. Again, Şengün questionable. That's a really important one to know. I assume he goes, but that's basically that. NBA normally 4:30 start. We're talking West Coast time. It'd be 7 p.m. normally on the East Coast, so 4 p.m. normally. But it depends on the day. They sometimes do 7:30. It's really, there's days where it's 8 o'clock. It's all over the place in a way that like NFL is not. For me? Oh, yes. For me, it's always 4 p.m. Eastern. Yes, but NBA in general is a 7 o'clock start. Yes, always 4 o'clock. 4:30 is just when I do unabated. For Houston, for the rest of the team, talked about Van Vliet already, 48% ownership for me compared to 38% in the sim. Not a priority play, but he works well price-wise. He's expected to get 37 minutes, and that's pretty good. Again, maybe as an older player, if he is the one chasing Steph around, which he probably will be for at least portions of the game, maybe that does tucker him out a little bit on offense, but he is known to kind of defer usage to other guys sometimes. But, again, price-wise, projection-wise, just a decent play for Van Vliet. Jalen Green looking okay. Jalen Green, not a stand really of either side. 29% sim exposure compared to 34% for me. Amin Thompson, I'm always low on by a little bit. I am underprojected by 1.6 points compared to Stokastic. Look, Amin Thompson finds ways to get steals. He's an effective offensive producer. He rebounds a good amount. 13% clip is even better than Jabari Smith on the year. I have no issue playing Amin Thompson. I just can't ever project him that well. But the tournament ceiling for him at 20% ownership is there. Shooting guard, small forward. Amin Thompson, I think one of those plays that projections will miss by a little bit. Like Stokastic has him at 28.4, so he's even under their threshold, a relative 5x. He's not a bad play. He just doesn't project well as like nearly every other Rockets player, which is what makes him a tournament play. Again, that's how DFS works. Tari Eason, 56% sim ownership compared to 32% for the field for me. So Eason, more of the play I'm getting to. Jabari Smith, I'm also low on. I don't really see a reason to change that, given how useless he is when guys like Şengün are in. Jabari Smith's biggest upside at this point is like all the big men are out. Tari Eason is out, including Şengün. And then basically Jabari Smith then becomes more of a natural 5. But he's just been awful on the year, 15% usage. If he's playing on the wing, you just can't get away with that. He's not rebounding that well, but it's fine at 12%. No assists either because he's not really running the offense at all. Jabari Smith having an awful year, 0.81 fantasy points per minute. Today I have him at 0.77. Really it's Eason kind of a bust for me here in terms of plays I actually like. Dylan Brooks will be out there a good amount of minutes. Again, he'll be chasing around Steph to some amount as well. More likely playing some more of the wing defenders, but it doesn't really matter. It's a team defense thing. For Dylan Brooks, okay play at 4,400, but not a play to love. 31.6 minutes, $4,400 price tag. Those are the main reasons you get there. But let's hop to the sim now and see what Stokastic has in terms of lineups, and then we'll do unabated because, I don't know, we're making decent time today, so let's get this out of the way. All right, share this tab instead. What we're going to do is build 5,000 lineups and have them compete against each other 10,000 times. That is the way things work on Stokastic Sims. Check it out for yourself. Link in the description to get 15% off. That's the only discount that we're going to have going for probably a while. So check it out. Get 15% off monthly packages for data, for Sims, for their lineup generator tools. Check it all out. And, of course, the affiliate stuff for Unabated and Stokastic both support the show. So please make sure to do it if you want to get this data in your own hands instead of just looking at a screen. All right. You got 30% to first today for the big tournament. Let's just run the sim here. Again, this is just Stokastic data. You saw my projections. Now we're going to see what the Sims think of just their data. So we'll get a read on what the field will be playing more. We're getting the logic here for looking at the stuff. Don't play the lineups you see on the screen right away. Use them to kind of think about what the sim is giving you. And then also keep in mind, too, that people on Stokastic are going to take these lineups from the top. So you don't want to take those normally straight away. But you'll see trends. That's sort of the main thing here. Trying to put up all the roadblocks for people to not fuck up things. Because I think I have to assume there's a portion of people that just play lineups off the stream. Play the bets on Unabated off the stream. Don't play DFS lineups you see on screen, whether it's here, Stokastic stream, Saber Sim, if they're doing Sims. Like, don't just take stuff you watch on YouTube. Now I know that we have people that don't even know what cash games are. I gotta like explain every part of how this works. But our results are compiling. Let's get them going. Wish it would be faster on a 2-game slate. Wish this would be good to go and done at this point. All right, here we go. Spin that wheel. All right. Your top lineups right now. You got Jalen Brunson, Buddy Hield, Gary Payton. Okay, well, Gary Payton the second. He's not Gary Payton Jr. Gary Payton, really? I have Gary Payton projected for 15.9. They have him for 15.7. Guess I did get Payton in 19% of sim lineups, but man, it's not a fun name to click. You got to click something on the slate, but yikes. Gary Payton Jr., Jalen Johnson, Karl Anthony Towns, Jalen Green, Tari Eason, Kevon Looney. So Looney in the top lineup here as well. Looney value not sneaking up on anybody, even though I got a lot of Looney in my sim as well. Number 2 RY lineup, Jalen Brunson, Buddy Hield, OG Anunoby, Jalen Johnson, Kevon Looney again, Jalen Green, Andrew Wiggins, Kuminga, getting a lot of Warriors in that one. Yeah, I don't get the logic for that many Warriors. You're fading Steph, so you're basically saying Steph's getting shut down here. But I think the more likely outcome is Steph consolidates the offense and all these guys bust. But certainly it's possible, I guess. Fred VanVleet at number 3 ROI lineup. Buddy Hield, Dylan Brooks, Jalen Johnson, Karl Anthony Towns again, Jalen Green, Tari Eason, and Kevon Looney again. Looney popping in all these. Number 4, Jalen Brunson, Miles McBride, Zachary Rizache, low minutes guy, but we won't be owned very much. Jalen Johnson, Karl Anthony Towns, Buddy Hield, Tari Eason, and Kuminga. So no Looney in that one. You're getting low on Rizache. Hield looked like a good value. Yeah, I don't hate that one. If you're not going to play Looney, it's not a bad lineup. The Jalen Brunson part, this price tag's pretty good. I'll give him that. Number 5, Jalen Brunson again, Miles McBride, Tari Eason, DeAndre Hunter, Cat again, VanVleet, Kuminga, and Looney. So Looney in 4 of the top 5 lineups here. Kuminga coming up a good amount in these. Brunson coming up in 4 out of the top 5 as well. Cat coming up in 4 out of the top 5. Looney in 4 out of the top 5. A lot of uniformity there. Your top player ROIs, check it in the chat. There you go, Richard. You're good. You're good. You're on the spectrum of things. It's all that matters. Not that spectrum. You know what I'm talking about. The joy of presenting publicly is just that no one knows anything and everything all at the same time. That's true of most things in life. And not touching Gary Payton too. The thing is, like, 2-game slate, you just got to play whatever you get at the math says to play, unfortunately, but it is a gross play to see up top. Again, gross slate overall. No player has a positive ROI on paper. Kevon Looney's the closest at negative 4.4%. Buddy Hield, negative 4.6%. The main thing is that you still have a lot of bad lineups with the chalk or with the best values in them. So you got to be careful about building lineups, and you are very likely to get duped to death and lose tonight. That's, I think, the slate looks like, unfortunately. I noticed this morning when I was pulling in the data, I was like, oh shit, there's like 6 less DFS plays in the slate. And obviously that could be guys that are like, projected for 10 points, 8 points, whatever. But there's just even smaller rotations for every team today. And, for the NBA Cup, you already have the stars getting more minutes. Like, there aren't just going to be as many available options. So building uniquely will be harder to do than it normally is anyway. I will say for yesterday, a lot of the lineups I had that were up top and were top 200 or so. They were all like ones where I had 3 to 5 dupes with it, and that was with Stokastic data. My projections overlaid on top of it, so it wasn't a bad dupe trade for me, I will say, based on what I got from their sims yesterday. Anyway, your top exposure players, trying to explain that. You're doing any manual tweaking. The main thing I've been trying to do, which I mentioned before, and actually I'll show it really fast if you use stochastic data, what I like to do right now, especially for these shorter slates, and this is what I was doing as well when I would use the solver and import lineups into Stokastic to sim them out. You get a quick favorite here. So what you would do is favorite. So let's favorite 4 uniques per lineup here and top 150. What that's going to do is make it so we're grabbing all the lineups that basically have at least 4 unique guys in them. That should be self-explanatory. And as a result, you get your exposures flattened out a lot more. So I'm getting like about 40% less Cat, less Brunson. Might be a little bit extreme here because I bet we have some lineups that have negative ROIs. Yeah, like I probably wouldn't want to take this 150 set with 4 uniques, but I could take it. Let me see if I could get this right. Sorry, I know this is probably niche concept, but this is one of the things that actually is pretty important if you're going to use a tool like Stokastic's Sims tool. Let's say 3 and 150. So my hope here is that all the lineups that come in are going to be positive ROIs, but then we'll have 3 unique players per lineup. It's easier to do for a 20 max than a 150 set. Here you go. So yeah. So if I put in 3 uniques and 150 lineups, every lineup still has a positive ROI, but we know that we're getting at least 3 different players in each lineup. So you'll get your Brunson, Cat, whatever base. Then it'll rotate in guys that don't project as well, guys that aren't going to be played as much in their combo. So that's my main way to get unique. But manually, if I'm doing the main tournaments, like for a 20 max, I'll just grab them like this. If I'm putting 10 entries into the big tournament, and I want to get the most of those out of those lineups, what I'll try to do is like lever against, let's say we know everybody in a slate is going to play starting center A. I'll try to find lineups out of a positive ROI with starting center or backup center A. It's like basically get the guy who gets direct leverage against your guy. Talked about that a little bit yesterday with Tristan Da Silva versus Cole Anthony. That didn't end up mattering, but the concept kind of did, where basically Cole Anthony didn't play as many minutes because they had to Silva out there more because Cole Anthony didn't have any shots, basically. So that's sort of what you could try to do is like figure out, hey, if this guy whose chalk doesn't hit, how do I get around him? How would somebody else benefit from it? And you could try to prioritize those lineups, but that's as much as I would do. I don't use ROI boosts. I know some people do. Sort of the way to look at it. Anyway, let's take off the unique stuff here. Try to just look at the 150 set in general because I think that's more instructive for like what the best sim lineups are. But if you want to play lineups, I think the uniques per lineup thing is probably the most important thing to do. But that's my opinion. Somebody smarter may feel differently. I don't know. Karl Anthony Towns, 81% exposure for me and the top 150. So again, not flattening things out, not forcing more uniques in. If you do force more uniques in, you'll get Towns away a little bit more, as we just saw, was getting 40% of him with the 3 uniques on. So keep that in mind here. But Towns to me right now looks like the best play for me, and also based off stochastic data, same thing. Happy to help, Mr. TD. I know that was kind of a long-winded explanation, but I feel like all these kind of DFS sim concepts have like layers of complication that are sort of hard to explain, but I hope it helped. I hope it helped somebody out there, including Mr. TD. Jonathan Kuminga, 64% exposure compared to 50% for the field. So positive leverage on him. Again, don't think he looks like the most impressive play, but the Warriors are pot committed to getting him the ball. And also he's playing a good amount of minutes. So if Steph Curry does get shut down, I think Kuminga gets a little bit more appealing. Jalen Brunson, 63% compared to 51. So positive leverage on him. Really love the price tag about him the most projection-wise. I can give or take him. Kevon Looney, 56% compared to 32. So on a slate with no value, getting a good permanent producer at center is nice. It'd be better if he were starting, but he's playing about 20 minutes right now, 21 minutes as the backup 5. So hopefully he'll get that amount of run out there. You do run some risk that the starters get more run. He sees less as a result. If he were to play less, let's go to Popcorn Machine real fast because I think this actually could be important to talk about. All right, so if Looney were to play less, he came in presumably for Draymond in this first stint. Second stint also looks like he came in for Draymond / Gary Payton, probably more likely Draymond. So if he were to lose minutes, it'd probably be because they went smaller with Draymond as the 5, because I don't think Trace Jackson Davis gets back in no matter what. I might not be sharing the right tab, guys. Sorry. Yeah, Looney, I don't think is going to be minutes fragile. I don't think they would start him at this point, but he could come in early in this game if Şengün is really ripping it and starting to dominate. But Looney, if he's going to lose minutes, and again, I don't think he does lose minutes, but if he did, it probably means that Draymond becomes a better play. Kuminga, they could maybe do that as well. But yeah, it's not another big that'll benefit. It would just be that Looney gets squeezed by Draymond at the 5, I think. So just one thing to keep in mind as you're playing lineups amidst all the things to keep in mind. All right, back to the Sims here. 51% Buddy Hield compared to the field's 31. Jalen Green, 50% compared to the field's 33. And Tari Eason, 49% compared to the field's 32. Your most positively leveraged plays, Cat, 34% more than the field. Looney, 24% more. Hield, 20% more in the top 150. Highest ROI in lineups. Jalen Johnson, 17% more. Tari Eason, a rounded up 17. Same thing for Jalen Green. And Kuminga, 13% more than the field. Your most negative leverage play is Trae Young, negative 20. So throw that Madison Square Garden narrative out the window if you're using Stokastic data. Look, I think getting Trae Young, I feel similarly to him as I do about Steph Curry. Do or die game. Add in the fact, too, that Trae Young really does seem to get off of playing an MSG. That's a small sample size data thing, but no in ball. That's just one of those things that sometimes happens with players. Knicks are good enough to defend him on paper, but they haven't been fantastic defensively. So Trae Young, this is a big stand on him that I get data-wise, but the basketball head in me feels like that's not a lot of Trae Young, and maybe getting closer to the field will be a move. Şengün, they're low on him, too. I don't love that. With my data, I was flat with the field on Şengün. I'm happy with that. Şengün, if Towns fails, probably the center most likely to have the upside to be able to win a tournament. So they're low on him. I like Şengün. Draymond Green is talked about, probably could get minutes if you do see Looney out. $6,700 price tag, still tough though, but for a tournament play, I would get it. That said, Stochastic says not even for a tournament play, don't do it. Bogdanovich, 15% compared to the field's 28, so low leverage on that, but still good amount of lineups for him at 4,900. Steph Curry, they're low on as well, so really taking a big stand against Trae and Steph. So I get it. I certainly like Towns a lot too, but it feels pretty vulnerable to have this little Steph on a slate, even at 20 max. Same thing for Trae. Amin Thompson, they're low on him as well. Talked about him. He's a good tournament option. Hard to project him that well, for sure. Clint Capella, I really not a center play I'm dying for. If he were to go off here, Kongwu, people are going to play Cat. They're going to play Şengün. They're going to play Looney as value. The Atlanta center is probably underrepresented for tournaments, even though it does feel like their upside is capped by just the fact they both exist. So that's Clint Capella for you, but they're low on him here for Stokastic. And that's Stokastic data. Now we get to hop to the world of prop betting and, of course, regular betting as well. Let's see what we get in the world of Unabated. Let me log in over here before we click the button. And let's play this little ad teaching you about the world of Unabated's conditional NBA projections starting right now. Can I just let the drums do the work today? Can I just lay back and let the drums bounce around on top of me? Well, but anyway, Unabated conditional NBA projections are players in or players out. You're going to know the results either way. You're going to start counting your money. You do that as well. Real-time NBA news, liberal media, etc. They don't talk about the United Healthcare shooter as much as the regular news does, which is a positive at this point. Grass! You like grass? Oh, scale that. Oh, ladies, I dare you to walk the plank of these crafts. Why would a pirate be talking about this? I don't know. It's sometimes cumbersome to do this improv every day. Arr. Chat away to me, mateys. On National Talk Like a Pirate Day. Unabated. Promo code SPLASH. Walk the plank. I don't know, guys. Some days I really feel like I don't have it, but, today's one of those days. Let's pull in our points here. Conditional projections. We got a bunch of Q-tag guys for every team on the slate. So we're just going to mark everybody in as we always do. Make sure to note, though, Jalen Johnson's got to play. I think Johnson, Şengün, Hart all play. Bogdanovich at this point, I would think, also plays. I'm not worried about these guys, but keep in mind here that Hawks lines, as a result, probably a little bit off. Knicks lines, a little bit off. Golden State lines, really the only one we could fully trust here, but we'll highlight it as we go. Let's sim out what the best lines are right now. According to Unabated's conditional NBA projections, of course, that we just saw a really helpful video about. And as the pirate pointed out, as the pirate that walked into the room and started doing really poor improv, pointed out, these are really helpful to build your bankroll. Zachary Rizache, value on under 11 points. Honestly, I'd take this one no matter who's in or out. But Bogdanovich being out would certainly affect the minutes outlay for Rizache. as would Jalen Johnson, so there's some risk. That said, Riza Shea sucks enough that he can get 50 minutes and he might not get 11 points. But 24% EV on PrizePicks right now for Riza Shea under 11 points, 21.8% EV for DraftKings Sportsbook under 10.5 points, 19% for FanDuel. So pretty big discrepancy here. You are taking on some risk if the Hawks guys get rolled out, but I'm not sure about that. Dylan Brooks, 15.3% EV under 13.5 points for him, minus 118 odds on your Underdog Pick'ems right now. PrizePicks still getting 10.3% EV for that. And for DK Sportsbook, 6.1. Yeah, you don't want to play it on DK Sportsbook. You could bet it on FanDuel Sportsbook for Dylan Brooks under 12.5 points and minus 104 odds. Signed up for my NBA subscription. I'm not sure what I'm doing. Will it build optimal lineups? What are we talking about? If you're using Stokastic, yes, you could see me use it on stream here. Their support is the one to talk to, though. It's not my product. I'm just an affiliate that shows you how to do it on stream here. But I appreciate you signing up for sure. Josh Hart, 13.7% EV under 13 as the points total here for Josh Hart. Minus 118 odds makes it playable on PrizePicks. You can also play this Josh Hart line right now on DraftKings Sportsbook. And Hart himself is the one questionable for the Knicks. So if he's out, the bets get voided. Hopefully you know the deal with that by now. But these bets for Josh Hart all look good. Under 12.5 points on DK and FanDuel Sportsbooks. And Josh Hart under 13 points on PrizePicks. Jalen Johnson, 10.9% EV for under 19 points on PrizePicks. Still bettable as well on DK Sportsbook. Anything over an 8% sim EV is okay. 2% market-based EV also okay. Betting on the unabated tool that you're using. But 8.3% EV on DK Sportsbook and FanDuel. Under 18.5 points for Jalen Johnson, minus 110 odds. So Jalen Johnson, playable on PrizePicks under 19, playable on DK and FanDuel under 18.5. Jalen Green, you're getting 9.8% EV on over 18.5 points on FanDuel, minus 122 odds. You cannot play it on PrizePicks, Underdog, or DK Sportsbook. DeAndre Hunter, 9% EV on under 17.5 points for him today. You don't want to play that on PrizePicks. You only want to play it on FanDuel at minus 110 odds. Let's go to rebounds now. I really think all these guys, none of the injuries are illness, I believe. So illness has been the one that's been taking guys out yesterday, including PJ Washington, as I mentioned. For stuff like soreness, I assume these guys go. They've all been playing lately. And again, the NBA Cup doesn't matter for these guys. Like Josh Hart has said on his podcast, he wants to win enough money to buy himself a stupidly expensive watch. That matters enough for guys. So I think they all go, but who knows? Zachary Riza Shea, value on the under right now. Again, this assumes that we do get Jalen Johnson, who's questionable. Again, not worried about him playing, but you got Jalen Johnson, Bogdanovich questionable. Riza Shea's lines here are probably the least stable out of the ones we're looking at. 15.8% EV, though, assuming that those guys play. For Zachary Riza Shea, under 3.5 rebounds on your PrizePicks Pick'ems, would still be playable on DraftKings, under 3.5 rebounds there, and minus 135 odds. Onyeka Okongwu, 15.5% EV on under 6.5 rebounds for him. Minus 135 odds on DK Sportsbook is the best bet. Still playable in a PrizePicks Pick'em as well for Okongwu under 6 rebounds. That gets you 12% EV. Jalen Johnson, 13.8% EV on under 4.5 rebounds, plus 100 odds. Plus money bets here when you have that much EV. Always something you should run to take out of everything on a card. Not playable on PrizePicks. And I would not play it on FanDuel either. Mikal Bridges over 3.5 rebounds. You get 10.7% EV according to Unabated's conditional NBA projections and minus 110 odds on FanDuel Sportsbook. 8.4% EV on DK Sportsbook as well at minus 115 odds. So that one's playable on the Sportsbooks. You probably don't want to play it on either of the Pick'em sites. OG Anunoby, 9.7% EV on over 4.5 rebounds. That's at minus 118 odds on FanDuel Sportsbook. For DK Sportsbook, you don't want to play it. And that's that. So play it on PrizePicks as well. Over 4.5 rebounds for OG Anunoby looks good for PrizePicks and FanDuel Sportsbook at minus 118. Assists up next. Let's sim it out here. Unabated, what they do, similar process to these Stokastic sims. They're simming things out 10,000 times based off the standard deviation for each stat. And again, using those conditional NBA projections as the baseline. And if for some reason you have questions about the quality of the projections and all of that, you question the quality of my projections left and right. That's perfectly fine. For Unabated, I wouldn't worry about that because they're being used by bettors that are betting tens of thousands of dollars on a slate, hundreds of thousands of dollars in some cases. These guys work with syndicates as well. There's a lot of people using, and not like legal betting syndicates, to be clear, not some, I know the word syndicate, I feel like has a connotation. The point being is like there's a lot of people using this data that swear by this data and are demanding it in a certain time frame because of how much money it makes them. So Really can't encourage you enough to just dive in head first. Be responsible with your unit size and whatever, but like get in as many bets as you possibly can that are plus EV from this screen. And when the product itself is available, especially on a big slate, jam it. They really I say that too. Like nothing will ever guarantee you win money. Tools like this with great data behind it, your best shot to win money, like a pro would win money. Kevon Looney, under 1.5 assists, plus 148 odds on FanDuel Sportsbook right now. It gets you 25.2% EV, and that line is evaporated on PrizePicks, Underdog, and DK Sportsbook. Amen Thompson, over 1.5 assists for him, looks good at minus 154 odds. This assumes that everybody for Houston is in, or everybody being Şengün. So it looks like a good bet to take, whether Şengün is in or out. If Şengün were out, it would only make Amen Thompson's outlay of assists even better. Steph Curry over 5.5 assists, minus 130 odds on FanDuel Sportsbook. Again, the assumption here, perhaps that he could dump off the ball a little bit more as they kind of try to trap him as much as they possibly can, with Houston being a good, smart defense with quality wings. Steph Curry, though, 12.6% EV on over 5.5 assists at minus 130. Playable as well on DK Sportsbook, over 5.5 assists there at minus 135. Trae Young, 8.1% EV on over 11.5 assists at minus 108 odds. That is crazy. A line that high is still positive EV. Trae Young, though, distributing at a high rate this year, as we talked about. His usage is suffering. Assist rate's been crushing, though. So for Trae Young, it's a lofty line, but it looks good. At least, it did look good. It looks like it just moved. So never mind. You could still bet it on FanDuel Sportsbook. The odds are now a little bit less favorable. Talking too kindly about Steph Curry here. The market moved. All right. And last but not least, our PRA's bets for this 2-game slate. And not a ton of options here, but still Unabated gives you more than enough to put together a card for the day. And that's kind of always the hope. Zachary Rizasheg, and this does assume that Jalen Johnson is in, Bogdan Bogdanovic is in. You're getting under 15.5 PRAs for him, having 22.3% EV. I would bet this one immediately once you know the Hawks guys are playing today. You'll know before slate locks, obviously. But Rizasheg, playable on PrizePicks and Underdog Pick'ems, playable on DK Sportsbook as well, under 15.5 PRAs at minus 120 odds. Dylan Brooks, under 18.5 PRAs, looks good on PrizePicks and Underdog, 11.4% EV on both the Pick'em sites. Looks not playable on DK Sportsbook. Is playable on FanDuel, though, under 18.5 PRAs for Dylan Brooks at minus 118 on FanDuel Sportsbook. Gary Payton Jr., slash the second, 11.1% EV for him, over 8.5 PRAs on Underdog Pick'ems, not playable on the other sports books. DeAndre Hunter, 10% EV on under 23.5 PRAs for him. That one's good on Underdog Pick'ems, not available on PrizePicks, and still good on DK Sportsbook, under 23.5 PRAs for DeAndre Hunter at minus 120 odds. Josh Hart, under 27 PRAs. He's questionable. This bet you can take right now, and if he's out, it won't matter. 9.7% EV for under 27 PRAs on PrizePicks. Does not look bettable on DK Sportsbook or FanDuel or Underdog. Jalen Johnson, you're getting 9% EV on under 34 PRAs, minus 118 odds, the standard for PrizePicks Pick'em. It is not quite as good at under 33.5 on Underdog, and you probably don't want it on DK or FanDuel. And that's it, guys. That's the card. So if you're tuning in for the NBA DFS sims, I did a little bit earlier than usual, guys. So just go back. Go back to like maybe about 4:25 or so in the video, or roughly when 4:25 p.m. was, and you'll get there. But that's the slate, guys. I will be on Stokastic's Deeper Dive, I think, with Eric Lindquist today, coming up in 10 minutes. So come join me over there in a little bit. Of course, make sure to support the sponsors here. Unabated, $30 off, promo code SPLASH, link in the description. Stokastic, 15% off, promo code SPLASH, link in the description for that as well. What else? Underdog, Pick'ems, Underdog, $1,000 of bonus cash on there. And make sure to subscribe, hit the like button before you go. Of course, it goes a long way from here. Trying to get to 500 before the new year. This brand new channel, it's been about a month and a half. So we're trying to get there as fast as humanly possible to get monetized and all of that. And your support goes a long way. In addition to just getting to see me do these streams every day, Monday to Friday at 4 p.m. Gamble responsibly, even if it's always money time. And follow me at Chris Spags. Follow the show at Splash Play Pod. And I'll see you guys on Stokastic's Deeper Dive in about 10 minutes. So, hey, enjoy your days. And, of course, good luck. Bye-bye.